In this video, we're going to be setting up the foundation of our Warhammer 40,000 table. If you want to learn a great philosophy on how to build and plan what terrain you're going to build, then stick around. I'm going to share a very simple way on how to add different elevations as well as line of sight blocking using some very simple shapes. The concept is so simple, most of you have probably at some point played with something like this as your terrain. Put some books and boxes on a table to block line of sight, and bam, you have some terrain. We're going to be kicking that idea into high gear and use these different shapes in many combinations to give us the ultimate backdrop for the rest of the terrain scatter. As you can see, the results of simply adding some elevation and nicely textured boxes around some small and detailed terrain gives us an amazing upgrade to the table layout. I'm going to show you how I built these, added the detail, and gave them a quick paint job that matches some of the other terrain. But before we begin, please hit that like button if you're enjoying this and subscribe if you want to see more stuff like it in the future. You can absolutely use any box you have lying around as your base, or you can build some to specific dimensions from cardboard. I wanted to make mine 4 inches tall, so I opted to build them myself. To get the box heavier, I used some vinyl tile for the top and bottom. These tiles are also a square foot, so the dimensions fits well for my case. Hot glue holds the sides pretty well, but you may have to use some stronger glues to keep the top and bottom on. To stop it from caving in, I'm adding bracing along the middle for structural reinforcement. Here's the construction glue to make that top on like a rock. I'll put an affiliate link to a similar product in the description. Be careful and don't get this on your hands, or if you do, wipe it off right away. It's quite hard once it sets. That's one box done. I put some weights on it and set it aside for a bit. I didn't show this for the first box, but I also added a piece of sheet metal under the vinyl top. Some of my terrain and miniatures have magnet bases, and this helps them stick down better. This is easily cut if you have a pair of tin shears. Luckily, the vinyl tile has an adhesive backing, so getting the two glued together was really easy. For the second box, I managed to simply cut an Amazon package box to the correct height, and then added the supports in the middle. It saved some time. I made a wedge shape using a similar method. This will act as one of our fixed ramps. I used drywall mesh tape to add in a graded effect. I tend to prefer this to stitching mesh as it's a lot slimmer in profile. Using cardstock from a Kinder Chocolates box, we go about adding some cladding to parts of the ramp. Jumped around with using cardstock and thicker chipboard to give some different looks. For some detail, you can randomly add in cross braces or paneling. Next, we're going to detail the sides of each box. For this, we're going for a generic sci-fi to maximize the usage that this terrain will get. It could be the interior of a ship or a Necromunda hive city, an industrial sector on Mars, you name it. The main materials I'm using are more chipboard, some XPS foam, or EVA panels for these dark parts. Adding some pipes as well to vary up the look. We'll be using these sparingly, but they add a nice touch. As you can see, each side will get similar treatment. I break up the flat surface into 3 parts using chipboard. Then I try and get creative with the middle of each section. No two will be the same, but the sections we broke up will give it some continuity. You can spend as little time or as much time as you want on this step. You can even carve some details into the foam, which I did to a degree. Just remember, this will all be mostly background pieces, and it's not meant to be a focal point, so it doesn't have to be a masterwork piece. Depending on how much of this terrain you want to do, it can get a bit repetitive. So try and put on some music or an audiobook in the background. I've been listening to Warhammer 40,000 lore as I get more immersed in the universe. The Necromunda or Hive City lore is very interesting to me, and this is kind of inspired by that. One of my friends ran a D&D campaign a while back where we all started off as teenagers in the underhive of a hive city, and we had to fight our way up from the depths and battle different gangs. It was pretty cool. I wish I would have had some of this terrain when we were playing that. Maybe we'll revisit it someday. For the top section, you can see I used more of that drywall mesh tape. Then, I just came in with various panels of different shapes and sizes to finish it off. This part's pretty fun. My 3D printer's been churning out various terminals or vents that fit the setting. I even found a pretty cool looking ornate door I can attach. I'm just going around hot gluing these in place where it makes sense. Careful not to overdo it. Now for some wires. I found the most interesting wires come from the inside of an Ethernet cord. I have a lot of this stuff lying around from when I ran some cable through my house, so it's easy to scavenge when I need some. Inside the outer layer, you can find 4 twisted strands. You can either use them twisted or untwist some of them to get some pretty thin gauge wire. The strategy for laying these out is pretty straightforward. Just make some hoops and hang them from the top part of the platform, getting them to look as if gravity's pulling down the middle part. Simply hot glue the ends in place. Getting multiple strands to overlap in the middle somewhere, or some running straight down, can help sell the look as well. To add rivets, I simply took a sharp X-Acto blade and poked holes in all the foam parts at even intervals. This is probably the easiest way to add quick detail, so it's worth doing. Next up, I gave everything a coating of Mod Podge to seal in the foam and the cardboard. Afterwards, I took it out to the garage to spray with some gray primer.
5 hours later.
I tried to keep my color scheme and time spent painting this to a minimum. The main idea was to have it tie in with various other pieces of terrain I've made in the past couple of weeks, while also being a shade darker and not as flashy, so it blends into the background. I went for a metallic silver overbrush as my base, and then came in with a blue paint for the main borders, and a brown to bronze for some of the panels. All of the pipework got a coat of green. To get this as grimy and dark as possible, and darken all the details, I used about a Coke can's worth of homemade black wash and just bathed each box in it. I used so much of it, in fact, some of the chipboard that was glued with PVA came undone and warped a little. I guess I didn't seal it well enough. Not a problem, this was easily fixed with some hot glue. To get some of the blue color back, I went back once it was dry and dry brushed some lighter shades on parts of the borders where I thought it would shine more light on. I had only made the 2 boxes a ramp and a large square flat piece. I think adding in some extra small sections would really help, so I put together another narrow flat piece. This works well as both a ramp or as a walkway between platforms. You can make these in any shape or size that you want, but I think pieces like this will get a lot of mileage. This one is just a piece of cardboard glued to sheet metal and textured the same as the boxes on top with chipboard and drywall mesh tape. I've really been enjoying all the different combinations of large terrain sections I can create with this method. Let me know in the comments if you have any ideas how to use this concept for your projects, and be sure to check out some of my other videos for inspiration.